Buonasera, spero che funzioni adesso. Allora, thanks for this kind invitation. I was not prepared to make a speech, but of course I've been hearing today a lot of arguments which are of course stimulating now some intervention. I would like to make a basic case. We are talking about several matters, about investments, about regulation, about issues. But I think one of the basic questions we should ask when talking about this subject is where do we want to go? Because it's, I think where do we want to go is the first question. How to go there? It's like when you take your car. If you are a wise driver, you must decide the point of destination and the best road to do. Of course, you can go. You can also want to decide not to do this, and in this case, we would waste time and gasoline. But I would like to do it the other way. Where do we want to go? And if you have in mind in the next 4 or 5 years a world which will be competitive, which will give plenty of services and bad prices for everybody, for consumers, for companies. I think the world I have in mind is a world where you have a plurality of operators. And I don't say that you must have 3, 4, or 5 operators. This is the market which will decide this. I think that there must be a system which potentially give the possibility for anyone to enter and create sufficient pressure for the company which are in the market to feel the pressure of the competitors and to make the best effort, the best prices, the best services in order to counter this fear. This is what I have in mind, and I think the best way for the consumers. If this is a public destination, how can we go there in an NGN environment? The previous speaker, they gave us some important figures. It seems that when we are going to NGN, the economy of scale will be much higher than the current world. Financial analyst has been already approaching this issue. There are reports from JP Morgan, for instance, which is some which is very expert in money. And JP Morgan clearly says that to deploy an NGN network on a national basis will require to achieve at least 55 or 60% of market share in order to be remunerated. Other analysts, like analysis funds, says that you have to increase enormously the ARPU, and other say that at least one new fiber network at national level will cost 10 times mobile network. I can give you 10 detailed data on this. So if there is this risk, the only solution we have in order to get to a world where there is a plurality of choice is to accept that there is some bottleneck, some part of the network which are not replicable by nature, and they need some models in order to be put at disposal of everybody. This doesn't mean that somebody has to have the investments and the other the profits. Everybody is investing in this market, but it doesn't make sense to replicate investments everywhere where this is not efficient. You remember in the year 2000s when there have been a lot of investments in the backbone and with an excess of capacity, and the result was various companies getting bankruptcy with a lot of problems for employee, for lending bank, for manufacturers which were not able to recover the credits. I think we have to leave, of course, to the market to do to make the right solution, but we don't have to force the operator to make inefficient investments. If you look how fibers are developing in the world, you will see that the figure I'm giving you are confirmed in the reality. Look, for instance, Japan. Japan is considered a country where fibers is developing very well. And Japan is a country where theoretically, if what the colleague of Etno say is true, you should have a plurality of fiber network, because you have financing from the state, you have a very high density of population. Most important, fibers are not underground, they are overground, which really reduce the cost of installation. But even in Japan, with such favorable situation, you have a dominant position of the incumbent operator up to 70%. And in fact, the government and the regulator, they intervene by way of regulation in order to keep competition. Look at the US. US, you have a duopoly, practically. But it's not a duopoly because the two companies started from scratch now to make a network. It's duopoly because by an accident of the history, you have the cable TV everywhere. And on the other side, you have the telephone network. But this is the maximum they can achieve. So there is a legend, which is now in Brussels, that when talking about fibers, you must force operators to do their own infrastructure. And they will bring each operator their fibers, their pipeline to their household. But this legend is not confirmed by the figures of the finalist, of the financial analyst I told you, and is not confirmed by also the practical implementation in the country which are, I would say, more advanced than Europe. You can see what happened there. You must learn from it. You must learn from that. So this is basically my intervention. I have some comments to what I heard from today from Bernardo, from Madame Green. Firstly, about the report of Madame Green, and I think I'm not a traditional Italian, so I would just in a British way say, which I support it, because if I were a traditional Italian, I would embrace and kiss Madame Green, but I cannot do it today, because I'm used since a long time to live in a foggy country with British people, so this is the result. But I was a bit interested in what Bernardo says about the current framework. Is the current framework available to address the current issues? And Bernardo made some proposal about geographic segmentation. It's a very technical and annoying subject, but I don't want to go too much in details, but I would like to make a couple of comments about this. First, the only regulator who made geographic segmentation in Europe is Ofcom. And in fact, the UK is one of the best competitive regulated countries in Europe, and this is number one comment. This means that in order to go for geographic segmentation, first, you must have a very good regulated country, very competitive. Second, Ofcom is a regulator with a lot of people working there and with a lot of resources. And the decision on geographic segmentation, you have seen, was some kind of Bible of 600 pages. And even with 600 pages and 50 people working on this, they were not able to convince the Commission. Because geographic segmentation is something very difficult, you must be really smart, and you must have very strong resources.